I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Michael Staver. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at KleenMark. If the remaining panelists could also go ahead and introduce yourselves, please go ahead.
Yeah, so my name is Billy McGrail, and I'm the General Manager here with KleenMark Distribution. Been with the company for just over 2 years, in the industry for equal amount of time.
My name is Doug Lerch. I'm the Business Development Manager here at KleenMark. Been here at KleenMark for 23 years and have just as many, double that in experience.
Hi, my name is Alissa. Shida. I'm from Kikkoman Biochemifa Company. I'm the Regional Manager for the North American market, and so happy that everyone was able to join our webinar today.
Awesome. Before we dive into the value and the details that relate to the A3 Lumitester and the different types of swabs, and of course the unique advantages that it brings, I'm going to share a little bit about the partnership and how things kind of originated and why between KleenMark and Kikkoman Biochemifa became a great partnership. So I gotta give a huge shout out to the ISSA, because without the ISSA, this certainly would not have happened. KleenMark is a member of the ISSA. We have been for 20 plus years, and the focus was around education, continuous education. So as we were investigating different types of trainings and developments at KleenMark, it's obviously in our business, right? It's all about the people, right? So we focus very, very highly on the recruitment piece, but of course from there it goes into the training, then the development, and the retainment, and hopefully promotions, right? And it's all about education. So that's really where the story began. So as we were looking into different types of trainings, specifically into verticals such as high regulatory, medical, food manufacturing, and others, right? We wanted to make sure that we had outside assistance, right? Consultants, and we reached out to the ISSA and the CMI, Cleaning Management Institute. And when we started to discuss post-perioperative operating cleanings, terminal cleanings, as many of you have probably heard before, we were asked the question, what type of testing are you doing, right? And we were doing the traditional ATP testing. When we asked, what do you suggest? They said, Kikkoman. And me being from Wisconsin, born and raised, not too far from Walworth, if anybody knows that area, I was familiar with Kikkoman as a soy sauce manufacturer, right? So my antennas went up, I was perked with interest, and we were then guided and introduced to Alissa and her team. And from there, we started to learn a little bit more about the differences between your traditional ATP versus the A3, right? So that was outstanding. You can see a couple photos here. Alissa and her team actually came to Madison. They came right to our world headquarters in Madison, Wisconsin, and they hosted an unbelievable training in our KleenMark University. And we were able to then start to adapt this after education and put this into play with our own organization. So we can talk a little bit about that collaboration piece and why that's been so successful and why it's so important. We're very fortunate at KleenMark to have both the service offering segment of our business, as well as the distribution side of the business, as it goes with equipment, chemicals, supplies, all those different things that you need to have holistically to deliver a good, proper service, right? So one of the unique advantages that really made sense for us was we were able to utilize this in our current existing facilities that we're cleaning and introduce it to our clients, our partners, right? We were able to run internal pilots, and through those things, it made a lot of sense for us to go ahead and obviously promote this and help distribute this as an educator, but also as a source. And the second piece is the sharing of resources. And I can't give enough credit and just appreciation to Alissa and the Kikkoman team for returning back to Madison multiple times. They haven't been back, as it's been pretty cold lately. So, maybe for a visit, because you haven't got to see our type of snow, real Green Bay Packer football weather. But all kidding aside, being able to meet with us, help mentor, and speak to this as a subject matter expert to our existing clients that are in infection control, EBS, different segments, facility roles within the organizations, has been incredibly helpful for us to kind of troubleshoot and put together different pilots where we can run these pilots parallel between A3 and your traditional ATP in facilities that we service today. So we can really show the truth and the data and the analytics, and also be able to speak on behalf of all the other different things that it brings. And some of those easy to point to things are going to be simple as analytics and the applications and technologies that we're going to get into a little bit deeper in this. But again, it goes back to the training piece, right? So it's essential for everything. We understand that if we don't train and educate properly, things are not going to have a good outcome. And when it comes to food or health or medical, that is just that's not an option. So we've continued to go through these educations internally. And our goal today is to hope that we satisfy by educating you. Hopefully we answer a lot of questions on the front end, but there is a Q&A and there's a chat. So we encourage to drop those questions along the way. And we're going to save enough time today to make sure that we can answer those questions. From here, I'm going to hand the ball off or pass the puck to Billy McGrail, if you'd like to take it. And then we'll continue on forward. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Good hockey reference there, Mike. So shout out to all my Canadians on the call today. But yeah, I just wanted to thank you guys as well for joining the webinar. There's some amazing information in this that we want to share with you all with the ATP testing and these Lumitesters. We were absolutely blown away, as Mike kind of mentioned. You see that picture there that he referred to. When we first saw this technology, I mean, I instantly fell in love with it. I thought it was really cool. I'm kind of a geek for this stuff. And I think you guys are going to be blown away as well when you see this technology. So, yeah, as Mike discussed a little bit about the partnership with KleenMark and Kikkoman, I just want to point out one more thing that I think is noteworthy. I'm not going to embarrass her too much, but Alissa is absolutely amazing. So she's been here since the beginning when we started this relationship with Kikkoman. I know she has to speak in a second, so I won't pump her tires too much. But the reason why we partner with these guys is really, we often hear in the industry, and we say this, we preach this at KleenMark, we're in the people business, right? It's one thing to have amazing products, but really what Kikkoman's all about is their service, their excellence, and that's why we partner with a company like Kikkoman. So, really, with this technology, I think it speaks for itself, but I want you guys to just get the vibe from Alissa and obviously Doug, who's our product knowledge expert. Just what we're about is like the service and making the world cleaner and safer place to live in. And that's their mission, and that's our mission as well. So yeah, excited to go through this webinar. As Mike said, definitely drop your questions in the Q&A, take notes. You're going to love this presentation, so kick back, grab some popcorn, or maybe a bowl of rice and some Kikkoman sauce, and enjoy. So without further ado, I'll pass on to Alissa to go through the webinar. And yeah, thanks. Enjoy, guys.
Thank you, Mike and Billy. So yes, as Mike has mentioned, we are Kikkoman, the soy sauce company. We did start off as a food manufacturing company. We knew what kind of problems the food manufacturing companies had, so we wanted to exceed more. So that's why we kind of made an ATP meter that's much more sensitive that's in the market. So first, I'm going to pretty much talk about the brief information of our ATP, the merit of using an ATP. So it's going to be a rapid testing. So it's going to be able to verify the sanitation on site. It's a simple, so anyone can pretty much use it. And the results will come out all in numbers, numerical numbers, so you don't have to speak the same language. And it is highly sensitive. So compared to the ATP meter that you're used to, the conventional one, it's going to be much more sensitive. So you'll be able to achieve much more higher results, and you're able to get better in your services. So some people might not be familiar with ATP, so I'm going to go with the basic part. ATP is adenosine triphosphate. It's the universal energy molecule found in all living things and also contained in organic matter. So examples for bacteria and food residues. So this is just going to show like how the energy production is made, just for brief information. So why would we be measuring ATP in general? So the presence of ATP indicates the substance derived from all living organisms, as mentioned. and suggesting the possibility of microorganisms or bacteria or food residues growing on that surface, which can be an indicator of cleanliness. And what is an ATP test? It's a method that can quickly measure contamination and microbial contamination. And it also allows an objective understanding of contamination status in a given location. So it's going to be like a brief application. It's going to be food production sites, factories, healthcare, environmental surfaces. Those will be the places that you'll mainly see an ATP test. And how does it work? You pretty much swab the surface, and I'll show you a video later on, but you'll swab the surface and then you'll put it inside the meter. And if the numbers are more higher, that means that there's more ATP on that surface, meaning that it's reducing more light. And if there's going to be less ATP, the numbers are going to go much lower, meaning it's going to indicate a better cleaning. So why would we be using ATP test? It's easy to handle. An ATP can be brought on site, so it's a portable meter you can hold with your hands. The results are always going to be in 10 seconds. It's going to be a quantitative result. So detection of ATP serves as an indicator of effective or ineffective cleaning. The low ATP levels can be correlated with removal of soils, dirts, and critical contamination. It is also going to be a proof that ATP has been proven in wide numbers of facilities, including food services, food processing, hospitals, and many cleaning situations. And it will also improve and defend. So damaging a brand image is very simple and easy, but protecting it, on the other hand, is going to be very hard to do. And enhancing the reputation is very challenging. Utilizing ATP tests can significantly aid the continual improvement and defense the brand's image. So what can ATP do? ATP is going to be a detection of an indicator, and it's going to be as fast and serves an immediate feedback on cleaning effectiveness and allow continuous improvement. So anyone that's on site, you can give them quick feedback and tell them, hey, you missed a spot, maybe you want to do a little bit better here, or you already did good enough, maybe we can move to a different place to clean. Or ATP provides a numerical results, which is going to be called relative light units. It's going to be an RLU. And this numerical measurement gives us the user a record of the cleaning history and performance. So you can pretty much track the trends and see how much excellence that you've been doing in your services. On the other hand, what ATP can't do is going to be the detection of ATP serves only as an indicator. It cannot identify the source of the soils on the surface, so you can't identify if there's going to be E. coli or any kind of bacteria. ATP is not a substitute microbial testing, so it cannot directly detect the bacteria or the viruses, cannot detect non-biological soils, cannot be used with biological augmented cleaning products, and ATP can impact by other cleaning agents reduction of ATP RLU levels. So especially in high concentrations, you'll see different ATP results that you normally think you'll see. Here are some couple of examples of where ATP are also implemented. As I mentioned, a lot of places will be in the food industries and hospitals, dentals for the healthcare, the cleaning services, building maintenance, janitorial, and the others will be hotels, airlines, trains, and I'll be talking a little bit about the case studies later on. So what is the Kikkoman A3? The ATP easily changes into ADP and AMP, meaning that A3 is more sensitive since it's able to detect all three of the ATP, ADP, and AMP, and that's why we call it's going to be sensitive than the one that you'll see in the market. So this is just a quick graph of what's the difference between the ATP and A3 by cleaning the surfaces. Before cleaning, as you can see, the green dotted line will be the Kikkoman A3 and the red dotted line would be the normal ATP test. The first part when we started, the A3 is already detecting more than what the ATP can detect. And then by the time that we rinse with the water and then rinse with hot water and then clean the surfaces with detergent or with the sponge, you can see how it gradually decreases. And as you can see for the ATP, the decrease is very small. And then for the A3, you can see how much detection that it started off with and how much reduces of ATP was on that surface. Here's a quick video of what I've been talking about. So what we did is we got a phone and we cleaned it with the microfiber cloth. What we did is we're separating this into 4 different sections, and we brought a sausage in to make it into a high contamination surface. So it's going to be nice and greasy. And we're going to be showing some of our competitors on this video too. So we'll have our Kikkoman A3, which is going to be the one on the left, and the Hygiena swab, which is going to be on the right. This is going to be an ATP meter. We have the Charm swab and the 3N swab, now Neogen swab. So the way we collected the samples are all exactly the same. We all mixed them together. Each swabs do have different ways of measuring, but we do mix it all together at the same time. And then we put it inside the meter. And then we'll press start, and then you will see the results. So as you can see, the Hygiena meter, the 3M meter, and the Charm meter, they all passed, even though we did have a significant amount of sausage on that surface. And the Kikkoman A3 was the only one that was able to detect the sausage that was left on the surface. And that is because when you do produce sausage, it does take time to make the sausage. So it's going to be more rich in the ADP and the AMP. So that means that the ATP test is not working. It's just that it wasn't able to detect the ADP and the AMP. So when you do have surfaces that you won't be cleaning right away, it's going to be more rich in that ADP and the AMP. So your ATP test might not be working, or you might have been doing a better job and you won't be able to tell that. So how we'll be using an ATP test. So we have a 2x2 inch, which is based off the ISSA clean standard. You'll try to collect the samples vertically and horizontally, put a good amount of pressure, and collect as much as the same amount of samples as you can. Sometimes the surface might be smaller than this. So what we do tell is collect it thoroughly, go over and over again, and then put it inside the meter and measure it. So for the ATP measurement standards, here are some different ways that you can set it. One will be based off the ISSA clean standard, which I'll talk about later on, or the validation testing, which will mean that you'll base it off of the results that you've collected, collecting 5 test points each, and then every 80 percentile will be passing, 20% will fail. And the comparative data will be some of the customers that used the A3 in the past, compare with it, and then see if that will match your facility. Here are some examples of test locations in the healthcare industry. We do have the cart, the thesoscope, the IV poles, receivers. Most of them, since it is a healthcare situation, we will say the pass and fail limit will be 500. Since it is a healthcare, maybe when it's in the cleaning industry, we might set it up into a little bit higher because of this, how many people will be coming in and out. So here's another example of test locations that we do have. For example, the household drains will going to be 34,000. As you can see, will not be the ones that you'll see in the healthcare industry. Or also touch panels will be also 26,000. So it's going to be much higher than what you'll see in a healthcare or in a food manufacturing plant, because it is somewhere that's going to be hard to clean and more people will be interactive with that spot. And visually, it will look like it's clean, but actually when you measure it, it's actually dirty. So a lot of people might say it smells clean, so it must be clean. That does not work when you're using an ATP meter. So ISSA has recently published a new clean standard. They all have all of the ATP meter in the industry, and we do have our Kikkoman A3 in there also. It's going to be based off of 2-inch and a 2-inch, and anything above 1,000 would be a fail. Anything below 500 would be a pass. So if you'll try to implement that into your facility and see if it will work or not, and if not, you'll have to set your own pass and fail limits. Here's going to be another case study from one of our customers. It's Hyatt Hotel, which is Andes Hotel in Tokyo. They are HACCP ISO 22000 for food services. They are also GVAC accredited. They went through a lot of hygiene programs throughout the inspections and established standards using comparative data. They also selected their high-touch surfaces throughout the hotels, receptions, door handles, even in the customer's room, hotel room. And they used the 80% threshold. So pretty much 80% of the results will be always a pass. The other 20%, that's the high number, would always fail. And regular testing throughout the hotel to verify the clean spots. So they'll do like the spot testing check during the management walkthroughs. They'll make sure that everyone is exceeding for their cleaning services. And the testing improved pretty much 50% in the guest rooms and 90% in the common areas. So they were able to keep up their standards during COVID also. Another one is Japan Airlines. They regularly inspect the sanitary conditions and infection control measures at all touch points, pretty much the airport counters, the lounge, the in-flight areas. Here are a couple of the test points that they do test for. They do have the kiosk also, even inside the screens and controllers in the cabins. They'll make sure pretty much everyone touches places will be the places that they'll test for. Another one's called the Aeon Delight. It's one of the Aeon Group, most popular retail group in Japan. And Aeon Delight is one of their group company that is providing the cleaning services. During COVID, they did have to update their new standard cleaning and implemented the idea of infection control. They applied the ATP test for quantitative evaluation and to quality of cleaning. And many of the reports, examples of actual RLU values taken from the environmental monitoring. So you can see before cleaning, for example, their break rooms, the dust was at 7,000. And then after cleaning, they were able to reduce it up to 700. So that is a very good reduction rate. And for example, the food floor, the printer, they have 13,000 and they were able to reduce up to 7,000. So that is somewhat still high, but they are slowly improving and trying to bring up their standards much higher. Another one is a GVAC case study that we've done with the PG's Children's Hospital. They did an on-site hospital assessment and pretty much taught what ATP matters in one of those cleaning industries and the healthcare industry. They emphasizes on the microfibers' role in infection prevention. So they didn't have to go through a brand new cleaning prevention protocol or program. All they needed to do was implement a microfiber cloth that was more effective. So most of the ATP results show from 9,000, and then it was able to reduce up to 30,000 by just using a simple microfiber cloth. And from here, I'll pass it along to Doug, the specialist, and if you go on, Felix.
All right. Well, I just wanted to bring up an example that Alissa and I went to. It was a large university, and we talked to the person who was in charge of all their testing, all making sure that everything was properly cleaned, and they used the hygiene system. So in front of her, we used her system, and we did the swab test, and it reached a 0. Which she was very proud of, and she should be with that system. And so next we use the ISSA system, and the Kikkoman A3 system, and we actually received the result of 9,979. And this person's jaw dropped and said, "What is that? What does that number represent? And why is it when I've been using this for years now, the hygiene, and it says 0?" And so in that place, she found out that she had to find out what is truth in as far as cleaning. That's why the Kikkoman Lumitester A3 is a deeper clean. So some of these things you can go through about lack of objective measurements. Well, now that you're faced with different results, now you have to come up with a new system to progress in the cleanliness of your facilities. Decisions made with audits based on subjective inspections. Some of that has to do with like the gel system that's out there, where they put a spot on certain surfaces and they make sure that someone's there, that they wiped it clean. But that's kind of still subjective as to what is still on that surface. The Lumitester device will actually be quantitative enough to show you that. Difficult to compare site to site, right? Sometimes they have to write everything down on a piece of paper, and sometimes they don't write everything down. But and we'll go further when we talk about the app that comes with this that's totally free. We'll show you a little bit about that a little bit later. Customers often have short-term memories, right? You're forced in many ways to write those things down. Sometimes people's 7 don't look like a 7, looks like a 5, or those results. So forget where they started. With the app, you actually have designated areas. Again, that's a case of improvement. Why they switched to you in the first place. You can verify the results in a matter of 10 seconds each test. So the Lumitester itself is great. You can see it literally takes 10 seconds. So while Alissa and I were at the ISSA show in Las Vegas, we decided to test people's hands as a result. And we were looking for results on hands and start out with people because in that world, you shake a lot of hands. We received at first about 25,000 on a person's hands with the register. Well, we continued. Those were guys, happened to be guys. So we kept on going. And then a little bit later, there was a woman who had a result of 50,000. So we thought we were getting shocked. And flying through the next day, there was a gentleman who had 100,000. So we actually claimed him as Mr. Toxic. So we tried to educate him in what this is and how to help him with that. That's just a general fun way to find out where numbers are and your experience. But you get instant numbers. You get results that you can share with your another phone. You can get reports, and you get free. The app is free, and the connection to the iCloud is free as well. So you can upgrade. One of the quick points with this is from a managerial experience. You can see on your computer, wherever you are, results immediately as they're uploaded. So next thing you can do is you can get on conversation with the departments, the heads, and say, hey, I don't know what happened there, but can we look at that again? Because we need an improvement on that surfaces within that room or that facility or the high touch points. Something went wrong. Maybe we missed it. Maybe we just didn't clean that properly. Again, so no matter what you use, a tablet, on a phone, your computer, all these are interchangeable. You can see everything in the iCloud. Your database is secure, so that you can see results in a live measurement. I talked to Alissa about the app a little bit more because when I was at the ISSA show, didn't have all my information, but one person asked me what about pictures? Can you put pictures? And yes, you can absolutely update pictures. You can bring remarks, notes, all kinds of different things that's customized and featured in. So it is a robust situation. So you can see it for yourself. Again, it is no charge to update. You can load it up via the app locations, and it's very, very easy. So up here, this is a great example. You can classify where you're at, where you're going to be clean. You can classify that. You can see the graph of where it's been as far as when you first started it, and then when you cleaned it, and then when you came back and did the second clean. You can see the menu. You can analyze it. You can see all the various measurements that you want right there at your phone or on your laptop, and it kicks with the Lumitester Smart. One thing I have a question for you, Alissa, is how many values can the Lumitester itself hold?
The results that it can hold up into the Lumitesters need more than 10,000 results. So if they don't want to use the app, they can pretty much have it all logged inside their Lumitester Smart. But if they do want to have like a report, send it out to their customers or even to the managers, I do recommend them using the app actually, because it's more easier to track the trends.
I don't want to tab through all those results to find out, oh yeah, this is where it's at. So yeah, so you can download them and you can, in the manual for the device itself, you can clear all the results once you've uploaded them. So it's very, very easy. Okay, so real-time results. Here's kind of like a wrap-up in a way. Measure the cleanliness on site in seconds, allowing for immediate corrective actions. Now, when you think about this, now that you have this new tool, oftentimes in the cleaning world, who gets the brunt of the blame for a feature for a facility? It's the people that clean it. When there's outbreaks or it usually goes downhill and says, you just didn't clean this properly. Well, now you can go back and say, wait, here's my data. Here are the things that we checked both before and after, and it is absolutely the proof of cleanliness. So now you take the burden off the cleaning staff, and now people, the administration, for instance, gets to say, okay, what are the other possibilities of this, and how can that be tracked into the building? So it gives you a greater avenue. It gives you peace of mind, and it's a great tool to use. So easy to use, right? Doesn't require a whole lot of training. It makes it ideal for any staff level. Cloud connected data management. You can track, store, analyze. Easy to use. Just go to the App Store. You can see it. You can load it onto your phones, tablets, and PCs. And then there is an enhanced hygiene certification support, which meets the global standards for cleanliness certification, such as GBAC Star and SGG environmental monitoring. So go back. What is the difference? So when we went to that university, they had just an AT meter. And when we used the Lumitester, it gave you the data for all three detections. So right now, you're a triple threat compared to the competition. It provides proof of cleaning. You can go back to eliminate the liability for your clean staff or your company that normally the clean staff gets, like I said, mentioned before, so that the burden of proof now is contained and it can go elsewhere. 10 seconds away from knowing if the surface is properly cleaned or needs additional help. It's not minutes, it's 10 seconds as soon as you push that button. And it keeps employees at their best. I like it. We've seen it in our employees where they go, wow, you should see the reduction I got on this surface. I made this look at it. I know the benchmark at that time is 500, but it's 300. And so they become proud of what they can accomplish just within their responsibilities to do that. And it's the best training tool ever to give peace of mind and ensure the health of everyone, visitors, staff, everyone that comes into those facilities. So I just can't say enough about the Lumitester A3 device.
All right, so we do have a couple questions that came in via the chat, as well as some questions that were populated ahead of time from the participants via email. So I'll ask a couple that came in via the chat if you guys are ready to answer some questions. And then for all the attendees, please feel free to start asking more questions through the chat if they come up. But first, I'm going to ask, this one came from Tim. Why was the clean with hot water more significant in its improvement on the ATP compared to the A3?
So I think Tim was talking about the graph over here. So usually when you do clean it with the normal water, it is able to take off that residues on that surface, but putting hot water, it'll actually put a lot more pressure, and that hotness will actually help remove that soil on the surface. For example, if it might have some oil on it, it might have some like food contaminations, those usually just adding hot water for a while, rinsing it, will usually reduce that amount of residues on that surface. So that's why you'll see a good amount of decrease with the A3.
Okay, this one I believe is a question. Let's see if we can decipher this one. So the difference between ATP and A3 levels of RLU is important, yes. Now we need to increase the detergent's concentrations and more water to achieve low levels of RLU, the relative light units. So I think the question is, do we need to increase the, I guess, detergent or cleaning product or concentration to achieve low levels of RLU?
So actually, you don't need to increase your detergent's concentration level. So what the ATP meter would pretty much help you is that it might even indicate that if your measurement, for example, it's really hard to get a 0 RLU on an A3 meter. If it does get a 0 RLU, that means that you're using too much detergent on your surface. So actually save you from using more detergent from the surface. So it'll be like an indicator of helping you what is a good. We do pretty much recommend you to use what the manufacturers are recommending, but it will be also an indicator of saying you will need to be using that much detergent to clean that surface, or that surface is already clean enough, so you might want to focus on a different surface that does not need that much of a detergent for that surface. So it wouldn't mean that you'll be using more detergent. It'll just help you what you can reduce or what you can focus on more a little bit better.
Now, one thing is actually adding pressure when you're cleaning. So sometimes people just swipe a surface and it doesn't necessarily clean it as well, but a little bit of friction helps a lot. We call it in testing.
Got it. Okay, this one came in from Tim as well. What is your experience using the Kikkoman A3 on mold affected surfaces post food cleanup? Or maybe do you have experience using Kikkoman A3?
So to be honest, I don't have an experience of testing for mold because we don't use it as an indicator for mold detection, but you can always do like a comparison testing using like a plate current agar or an easy plate, like a prepared media plate that we do offer. So you can compare your measurement results with those plate testing and the ATP and see somewhat of a correlation, but it's always going to be like an indicator for the mold to grow on the surface. So it won't always tell you an accurate result. So you're going to have to always do a testing if you want to know how much mold is going to be on that surface.
Okay, this one maybe you can't reveal who, or if you do have this, but do you have any federal government clients currently? And how is their ability to download and utilize the app? I think regards to like restrictions and security.
For federal government, we do have a couple of clients, but it will depend on their facility. Sometimes their security will go through the app and then they'll give them allowance to download the app. Sometimes they do have to buy a different tablet just for the app so they can access to the app and track the trend. So pretty much depend on their facility and how they want to proceed with it. Sometimes they will get rejected, to be honest, so you will have to ask your IT team for that information.
Probably case by case. So this one is probably more for Doug. So we've distributed Hygiena in the past. How can we access Kikkoman?
You probably know him, Canada. We actually sell it, so you can do all distribution from us. We would just do shipping will be the difference in getting it to you. So we are the distributor for all of US, and we shouldn't be a problem getting it over.
All right, so these ones came in via email, so everybody keep loading up the chat with questions if you have them as they come. So this first one, in the ATP sampler value count, or does the ATP sampler value count include the microorganism pathogens like, for example, E. coli, Salmonella, and Listeria?
So the ATP is only an indicator of the microorganism, so it won't be able to tell what kind of pathogen is on that surface. So it will be like the mold, you'll pretty much have to do like a plate testing to identify those pathogens. So if you want to do a comparison on your surface, or you have to report to someone how much E. coli, Listeria is growing on your surface, you'll always have to do a plate testing because ATP is just going to be like a daily verification cleaning tool that you can use.
It's quantitative.
Gunter asks, should we use ATP AMP with LS in which step of endoscope cleaning? After manual pre-wash or after automatic cleaning after the second step? So I think you're asking when would you test in the process with endoscope cleaning?
So you'll pretty much use for endoscope cleaning, you'll use it after cleaning. So you want to identify it if it's fully cleaned or not. You do have a swab that'll use for the endoscope cleaning. You'll pretty much put it inside your channel and then check if the inside is clean or not. So you can use that instead.
And in the US, that's still not approved, right? Because FDA.
Yeah, it's not still approved. So if you're located in the US, I'm sorry, but that it will not be a testing
We're
way
still
for
waiting
you to
on
do.
that.
But if you're out of the US, that will be another option for you. Thank you.
But that is being currently used in Japan, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Here's a good another question from Tim, which I think I know the answer to this too. I'll let you guys answer. The A3 swabs are not pre-moistened. Have you found any significant difference with the water source used for moistening, for example, tap water? So I'd maybe talk about the pre-moistened ones and then how to go about using the dry swabs.
So the pre-moistened, you don't have to worry about how they come, right? You just use them as is. You don't have to worry about if they will throw off the numbers or any valuations. With the dry ones, we actually recommend you test the water first. So you can start with, for instance, distilled water, which will mitigate large differentiations. And so when you test that water source, you contain that water source for the rest of your testing. And so you gently dip the swab in there and then kind of push it so you kind of rinse off the swab a little bit. But you would just then test that first one. And so that you would deduct that from the value of your rest of what the surfaces that you're testing. So it's vital that you can still contain that source of water so you don't have to go and say, okay, now I'll test this water in this room, to test this water in this room, to make a deduction of what that value is in your results.
Excellent. And I think the answer to Tim's question as well, there are pre-moistened swab options for Kikkoman for the Lumitester as well.
Yep, and there's water ones too, just to test water.
Excellent. Alissa, I would assume yes, but do you have representation in Brazil?
We do have a reseller. So if you do have any interest in purchasing or anything like that, if you can just shoot me an email, we'll be able to help you out for that.
I think, do you have your contact information in the chat? We can probably add that. So anything outside the United States can go to Alissa. You can also reach out to Doug, and Doug will pass on to Alissa as well. Okay, another one via email. How can we implement ATP in restrooms and lunchrooms of food production facilities?
So those will be a high touch point surfaces for the lunchrooms. That'll pretty much be the trays. Anywhere that you do think that we do tend to miss, like the backside of the rails, any places like that, we do kind of test for. The bathrooms, we do test for the hand doorknobs. So you'll think that the doorknobs on the outside will be actually dirty, but it's actually the inside that's dirty compared to what you kind of assume, or even inside the toilets, because sometimes we do kind of forget to clean those parts, and it's really hard to clean those toilets also. So we do test those points also. So that'll be probably the main test points for people to be testing when they're using an ATP meter.
It's an interesting question, good one. So how can your product be used to increase our company's value in our customer's eye? More sales related, I suppose.
So if you use an A3 meter, for example, if you're using an ATP meter, you might scare your customers at first, but that's telling your customer that you're always looking for a better technology. You're trying to achieve better. And when you start off with 10,000 and from cleaning, you're able to reduce it to 1,000, that's always going to be a way to present your services. And also, if you started off with 10,000 and you're always doing much better every single time you test for it, you can tell how much you've been achieving, how much cost that they've been able to save, because they won't have to test for more places that's already clean. They can they can focus on places that tend to be more dirtier. So they'll be like, it doesn't have to be visually clean. They'll know that the ATP meter would back up their service. So that will be able to boost up their company level by their brand. So
Love that question, because even when you're familiar with the hygiene and you're on that and you get zeros almost all the time, now all your staff that you're training now, there's a different value. So it takes a little bit for them to go, oh, it used to be 0, now I'm at 500. So they kind of look at it and go, oh, but then they realize, oh yeah, there's 3 components that we're testing versus 1.
Okay, back to Tim Law here. Would you ever use A3 on a surface that is visibly dirty? Is there a risk of soil, including the light generated? So yeah, would you ever use A3 on a surface that is visibly dirty?
If their soil is really like you have a bunch of dirt inside, that might affect the results. So what we do kind of recommend is we'll probably have to see why you want to test that surface, because it's usually going to be an indicator of cleanliness, but you're pretty much going to have to remove those soils or residues a little bit more so you can collect a cleaner sample. But you can try it to see the reduction. There might be an effect on the results. So we can't tell you 100% sure that there's going to be this amount of effectiveness on your results. You pretty much have to do a validation on your own to check for that point.
The other thing with disinfectants, if you look at the labels, they say that on a pre-cleaned surface. So you'll actually have to clean the surface in a general perspective and then use your disinfectant to get your final value.
Good point. Alex Chin asks, in reference to training, you'd mentioned that training is not extensive. Can you expand on the training and give some examples?
So the training is not going to be extensive because it's pretty much using a cotton swab. You'll swab the surface, just put a little bit of pressure on it, collect the sample every single time the same way, and then put it inside the meter and just press start. That's the simple procedure way to do it. You can expand it. For example, if you have some test points that are really hard to collect the samples, for example, faucets or even small handles, surfaces that are really smaller compared to a normal table or stainless steel surface, those might be a hard places to test for. So you can collect samples, practice collecting samples on those surfaces and see how much your detergents are actually working or how much your cleaning cloths are working, if your cleaning procedure is working or not. So you can make like a full training on an ATP meter just by how you want to teach your colleagues.
Okay, this is going to cover 2 questions. So what is the average ATP score and what is safe level for different industries, i.e. medical, education, offices, manufacturing? I assume we're probably all the same, but yeah, what would be the safe levels and what's that benchmark?
So usually the safe level, well, the manufacturer as Kikkoman we would recommend for healthcare would be somewhere around 500 or below. For cleaning, like ISSA has mentioned, it'd be 1,000 or below, but we do see for some surfaces it's going to be much higher. For example, if you're going to test for your hands, we do recommend 2,000 or below. So it's pretty much going to depend on each of your surfaces, and usually it's going to be much higher than what you usually see with your conventional ATP test. So when you're going to do a side by side, just collect the samples the same way and you'll be able to collaborate.
All right. This one, I think they're asking the ATP Lumitester results cannot be used as verified results. So maybe a statement, but then they say, how can we reduce environmental lab costs by investing in the instrument?
So as ATP is a daily verification cleaning tool, and if you're going to send out your samples to a lab, first, like we mentioned, we can do like a comparison data with your plate testing, with your easy plate or any plate testing that you usually do to identify your pathogens. And then once you do have a set benchmark value, you can do ATP testing as your daily verification tool, and you can reduce using the lab testing. So you can reduce it up to sending your samples every single day to reduce it up to once a month just to verify if it's working or not, just a validation purpose. So you can, by using an ATP meter and a swab, which is going to cost a lot less to send out your sample to a lab, you'll be able to reduce your cost for the lab testing part.
This one's from Gunter, very specific question. So I will get I'll get tomorrow with a chance to view one of our first PD20, which we sold 10 years ago, and make a calibration test. If the results are within the levels recommended from Kikkoman, can I tell the client that he could use the PD20 with A3 surface? It's a hospital client for cancer treatment.
So if that PD20 is calibrated, then you can, but if it's not calibrated, which you probably sold it 10 years ago and hasn't been calibrated for a while, we would not recommend that it is working or not. We'll try to make sure that you bring, like, for example, your Lumitester Smart and just do a side by side to make sure that the results that you're getting with your PD20 is actually matching or not, because that's going to be a two generations before our Lumitester Smart. So if a customer is struggling for that, since the services won't be available soon, we would recommend them to switch over to the Lumitester Smart.
Yeah, okay. And your swab just asked the question I was going to ask. Do you recommend to calibrate Lumitester Smart used specifically in food industry, and how often? So how often should you calibrate?
So we do have a calibration test kit that you can do in-house. You can do that on your own to calibrate your Lumitester Smart if needed, because sometimes your facility would recommend to calibrate your meter once a year. But if not, then we'll pretty much have a self-checking inside your Lumitester Smart that you can just measure inside. And then if it's passing, then it's able to go. So that'll pretty much depend on what kind of facility and if it's a requirement inside your company, then you'll have to calibrate it also.
How extensive would that be calibrating, or what does that entail? Can you kind of explain the calibration piece?
Calibration kit, it's a simple kit. It's like a measurement. It's like the swab, and it'll tell you different numbers, results, and then if it's showing within that range, then it's simply calibrated. If it's not, then we will ask them to do a full calibration, which is going to have to change the mirror inside and have it fully calibrated. So if you want a simple check for a calibration, you can just use a kit. If they want a full calibration that is manufactured by by our company, then they'll have to send it in.
Okay. So this question comes from Amanda. I believe this is sort of answered, but I'll ask this again to reiterate. So how do you determine the limit RLU for each surface? Have any validation?
So we do have the ISSA's clean standard that we do recommend using. And if not, if those surfaces aren't the surfaces that you want to test for, what we will recommend is using the 80 percentile. So you'll collect five samples for each test point, and every single 80% of that test point, 80% of them would pass, the other 20% would fail. So anything that's always failing would be your upper limit. Anything that's 80% passing, that's going to be your lower limit. So you can determine your lower limit depending on your facility.
I see Nobu Yoshi is chiming in here on the chat, so thank you, Nobu. Couple more questions here we had earlier was, how long can the swabs be stored?
So the pre-moistened swab, the shelf life will be for 12 months, and the dry swabs will be for 15 months. So it'll pretty much depend on how often you want to use your swab. I'll pretty much say the go-to swab will be the pre-moistened one, because you won't have to find water or test the water if you're scared of the background number of the water. But if you want a longer shelf life, then, or you know what your numbers would be for waters, I would recommend using the dry swabs. But I will highly recommend using the pre-moistened swab because it's much easier.
And that's being refrigerated, correct?
Yes.
And if all of a sudden they leave a pack out, how long can it be without them having gone back in the refrigerator?
So usually if it's around a room temperature or you didn't leave it outside your porch, probably around 2 weeks should be okay. But anything above that, I would not recommend leaving it out. But usually it should be okay because I do travel it around with my swabs too for 3 weeks, and then I do have limited access to refrigerators and I still get almost the same results. So
Andre asked, do dry swabs need to be refrigerated as well?
yes, the dry swabs also needs to be refrigerated.
Okay, let's see. I have a couple more for you. So this participant asks, I've heard that sanitizers can affect the results of ATP tests. How much does sanitizer residue affect the A3 test results?
So it will be the same as an ATP test, but if the concentration level is high, for example, you put a whole amount of detergent and you haven't concentrated for any amount level, then it might affect your results, but usually it should not affect your results. So you can always like determine test and see how much reduction or how much the results would appear on your meter.
Okay. Last one I got here, unless there's any more, is what kind of industries besides food companies uses ATP related tests?
So I think we had a slide over here. Other than the food production, I think what's really unique is sometimes a museum uses our ATP meter. We are the only company that has the dry swab, so they won't be affecting their artifactual things that they do have in their museums. They can swab those without wetting the samples. Even airlines, ATM machines, trains, those are probably like the test points that kind of got common during COVID, and they are still testing it because it just got into a routine. And of course, cleaning services, like with CleanMark, how they did implement it at their facilities too. The healthcares are always a major thing that we'll be testing for.
Where would the recommended measuring sites be?
For
I guess any industry, like where would you recommend? You know, you mentioned museum, so like artifacts. Are you testing like paintings or?
Yes, so sometimes we'll be testing the paintings, any kind of old books, those kind of things are also tested for microorganisms to prevent them to grow on that surface because they do need to be shut in a secure area so it won't break or won't damage it. They will be testing those kind of things. Sometimes artificial things that they did find when they're digging up some of the graves, they do test for those also. When you do look it up on Instagram or Twitter, sometimes you do bump into those museums that are actually using the ATP meter. So it is nice to look it up time to time, see how they're testing for it.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so I think I got everybody's. If I didn't, I'll leave it open for another minute or so. If I did not capture your question in the chat, feel free to repost it. And we'll try to get to that. Otherwise, I think that's pretty much it. Any other words from Alissa or Doug? Final words, final thoughts?
With regards to those other ones that you kind of showed for the testing from whether it was 3M or Hygiena or all the,
sure.
I said that the relative price of the unit and swabs are typically less than those manufacturers. And so that gives you another incentive, not only to detect deeper cleaning, but get involved at a less cost.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, we'll I think so. Megan has been posting your information here, Doug, for the participants to reach out if they have any more questions, and then if they want to know costs or how to purchase. So yes, just a reminder for everybody, please reach out to Doug. You can visit cleanmark.com. And there's a link there in the chat from Megan to everyone. Click that link and you'll find some more information. One last question did come through here from Gunter. So does Kikkoman have a document where they show a lot of the scientific documentation, as it's very time consuming, always looking for that type of information?
Yeah, so we are working on that part. We do have all of our articles listed in our website now. So all of those scientific documentations are all in our reference, which is the test kit site. We'll be sending out the link soon, but if you can access through there, it will be much easier to look for the data that you are looking for. And if you have any specific questions that you want to know or you can't find it, you can always send us an email and we'll be always able to direct you to that specific link, or we can send that information to you.
Okay, well, I think if that's it. Again, thank you everyone for joining today. Great presentation, Alissa and Doug. Hopefully got everyone's questions answered. Again, if not, please reach out to Doug or Alissa. The information's in the chat. And then, as Martha mentioned, we will be sending out the recording here within the next week or two. So thank you, everybody. I think that concludes.
Thank you for joining
Thank
us.
you. Thank you.